Hey, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is a video of my fake pigskin article key analysis of the FFPC ADPs part 2. Please check out part 1, the video and the article. I have some written material, and for me, I think it's essential to do a video as well, and hopefully helping you win your fantasy football drafts. Let's get our pointer here. Yeah. So, first thing to note when I look across at this FFPC ADPs, I like to consider the draft picks as well as the positions and the numbers of each position selected as per the ADP. This is just an average. This doesn't mean any leagues FFPC will actually have these numbers, but it's a good starting point, and I believe it gives you some key information here, and that's the point of this figure. Uh, so we have the position here: defense, place kicker, QB, RB, tight end, and wide receiver. I went through a hypothetical 30 rounds, and most FFPCs are not 30 rounds, but I went ahead anyway. Here are the grand total, the number of each position selected, and if you look at per 12 teams, this is the total percentile here. So probably unsurprisingly, wide receivers and running backs are a third and a third. So roughly 65% of your draft that you'll be in will be RBs and tight end. Wide receivers, probably not surprising. Wide receivers have a little bit of an advantage over the RB as far as selection. Tight ends and quarterbacks are about 10 to 12%. Defenses 9%, and place kickers 5%. This is a theoretical here. So I also tried to circle, and I probably didn't pick the best circle here. So for instance, defenses, draft picks 3, 6, and 11 will have a natural tendency to collect 4 defenses. So if you just let ADP go for 12 leagues, this is how it will end up. And you're saying, well, what does that do for me? Well, I think what that does, it's not where the most end up. To me, it's where the least end up. So that's 7, 5, and 9. And those draft picks, you're not going to be naturally landing exactly on a defense spot. So if you put an automatic drafting mode, theoretically you might miss out on a defense if you were going 30 rounds. So just be aware of that. And if you're landing at one of these lower positions like 5, 7, and 9, you're actually going to have to shift away from where you would naturally land. In other words, as the ADP goes and as the draft goes, the tendency is those are going to be the worst draft picks to pick up a defense at the ADP position you'll be at. So you'll just have to plan in those to get ready to search for that. And probably for defenses and place kickers, you can look at the low levels. It's probably not a big deal. Quarterbacks, the worst are the 1st, 8th, and 9th. So you're only going to land on 2 and 30 rounds. So again, just in the back of your mind, I don't know the level of importance, but I like to know when I have a draft position assigned to me, just kind of where, if all the chips fell on average, where would I be at the lowest positional point, and that would be for the quarterbacks there. For the running backs, the worst would be 6, 8, and I guess 6 and 8 are pretty much the worst. So if I draft pick 6 or 8, I'm just going to be aware that on average there's going to be a tendency to have a little bit fewer RB opportunities just by that, by just say auto drafting, for instance. I've noticed some players in FFPC do that. It's not something I do, but just be aware. Tight ends, draft position 2, 5, 9, and 11 are the worst draft picks for tight ends, naturally landing on those. So again, you would have to search and pick with those draft picks. Just knowing that kind of can get you prepared. Wide receivers are 1st, 6th, and 12th really bad there. Probably some depth plays you'll have to be working. You're basically working against the ADP landing exactly at that position. Especially in later rounds, I think people just kind of, oh, this is where I'm at, so I'm supposed to take that, so here we go. So I like to know that. That's probably esoteric and not something that most people, if anybody else other than me, figures out. I just like to know that. Probably overdoing this. Well, yeah, I'm overdoing. Look, I overdo the metrics, okay? I like to go through a lot of metrics and just kind of have that. And the process of me going through it actually helps me kind of think about these things a little bit. So I have the advantage over you because I've gone through all these. These are not, nobody made these charts for me. I'm into the data knee deep and searching and figuring things out. So I think that's a strength that I have in being successful. So not sure many do that, care what they say. Just not sure they go to the depth that I go to. So that's one thing I do, and show you that little aspect. The next thing is I like to look at the complete draft as far as positions, and each circle represents the ADP draft pattern, and this is 20 drafts, so 240 picks here. And it's not that I, get confused by runs and gaps, and that's things that I'm interested in. And for instance, you can see, and I think and I don't know if that's the best thing, but here we go. Yeah, right there. So right there, notice RBs. The first round here, so the first 12 picks, it's clearly right now the way it's going. Even the professionals are doing this. It's very RB centric here, and a few wide receivers. Now you're looking at tight ends, and there's 2 taken in the first round. Realize that this is a tight end premium platform, and tight ends get you 1.5 fantasy points per catch. So there is a little bit of an exaggeration in the pattern of the tight ends. So just kind of keep that in mind when the tight ends are ending where there's gaps. For instance, round 5, no tight ends are predicted to break. So I call that a gap. So the first 6, and then there's a gap, and then the next 6 or 7. So you do have a round that if you want to get a jump on tight ends, that's the round to do it if you're a late tight end drafter. Okay. I don't care. You could go early, you could go late, you could go multiple. It's just, I think it's important to know the flow of the draft. And to me, that's telling me something. And so RBs, tight ends, wide receivers, that's going to be the most. So you're going to get a lot of that happening here. And we're going to have to we're going to have to scale a little down. And I'm going to break the pattern into the 4 rounds each. So we'll see a little bit more here. Quarterback, the first one, Mahomes, is at 36 pick. So if you want Mahomes, but you're planning on taking him 48 or 60 picks, you're too late. So if you can accept that, then what of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks do you want then? Because you're not getting Mahomes. And if you're a late round pick, look at this gap here, late quarterback right there. So it looks to me almost the 84th, probably about 87th pick to 108. No quarterbacks are taken. So what is that? That's 7. So if you wanted 8th, 9th, or lower quarterbacks, and there's another little gap right here in this round. So you have an opportunity. Some people are going to pick them up here, some here. You can kind of see. Jump a little early. Here's a gap. Going to grab a few. So you can see a little pattern here, little runs on QB. So it's just good to know where those are at. Do you want to be at the end of the late QB flow? If so, then you're probably picking in here. And if that's fine, that's great. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying here's the pattern. If it's like, no, I want that 8th round or the 8th quarterback or 9th, whoever this person is, then you might pick them early, right? Or if you're going to be a streamer, then maybe you need to pick up 1 or 2 in this range, or 1 here and 1 there. If you have a D play, you'll have a gap in here before these are taken out. So you can do that. Place kicking, if that's your thing, you can see the first place kickers there. The first defense is there. So we're talking 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th rounds. So I wouldn't even worry about it too close. If you want to get a jump and it's like, man, I got to have the Washington defense, then I would, you'll know when you need to make a jump. And so here it is. So I like to see these and just kind of, as I go through, and a lot of times I'll come back to this pattern and just kind of remind myself what's going on. I like to know what's coming up. Not that I have to make a move or not make a move. I just like to know. I can accept or reject any process or pick. I just want to know. I don't like to be guessing like, well, why is that? Why are those quarterbacks not going here? I just like to know that. Okay. It lowers my cognitive dissonance. And if you've seen any of my work at Fake Pigskin, check out the classroom, and I've got a bunch of lessons, video lessons there for fun and profit, or probably just fun. I don't know how much profit, but there it is. Okay, so that's an overall 20 round draft pattern. Here's rounds 1 to 4, and I'm going to break them into that. And I color-coded the dots so you can see wide receivers, tight ends, RBs, QBs, defense, and place kickers. So this is the first 4 rounds. And I do have a number above a certain one. That means there's a box and a number. That means that level of wide receivers, for instance, is gone. So the first 12 are gone somewhere before the 36th pick, maybe the 30th pick. Okay. The first 12 running backs are gone middle of the second round. Okay, the first 2 tight ends are gone by the first round. First 3 are gone by round 20, pick 24. First quarterback here is Mahomes at 36. So you just need to see what people are seeing. But if you've got draft pick 10 or 11 or 12, that's where I think a lot of people are picking other things other than RBs. Okay, and everybody's doing that. You can pick an RB, you can pick a tight end, wide receiver. You just need to know that. So do you want to go with kind of the flow of the draft, or you want to try to break the pattern? That's up to you. You know, people argue 0 running back, 0 RB, late tight end, early quarterback, late quarterback. Lots of different flavors and variants on rounds and drafting. I just like to know the pattern and kind of get a feel for my draft pick and where am I at. Yeah, if I had first pick, it would be hard to draft a tight end, even in a tight end premium. Okay, so, you know, Kelsey looks good, but you can see he's tended to go maybe the third pick. That may be a little high for a tight end premium. You just need to figure out, you know, if you're comfortable with that, you know, because, you know, some people love RBs, right? They love them. And there's going to be, in the pattern, a lot of people coming out with 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers in the first 4 rounds. That's fine. Just whatever you need to do. In other words, it's going to be rare if somebody grabs 4 wide receivers or 4 running backs. You could, but it's rare. So you just need to know, do I know more than the pros by going in an extreme draft, you know, situation? It's up to you, right? If you go something really interesting, for instance, taking Mahomes first, I would make note of that in my, you know, my draft diary and just see how that worked out at the end of the season. Maybe that's something you're good at. I don't know. But here's the pattern here, and you can see that right now the first 4 rounds, running backs are really going. But you're starting to see, for instance, in round 3, that there's a lot more wide receivers taken than my dog barking. So round 3, wide receivers. Round 1, running backs. Round 2, running backs. Round 4, pretty equal. So you can even look at the tendency in each round. So if you went running back, that's kind of what the flow is saying. Then wide receiver. That's what a lot are doing. Not saying that's what you should do. I'm just saying that's what is being forced. I mean, there are a few quarterbacks and tight ends taken, but that's kind of that overall dominant pattern. You just need to decide going in just what these patterns are and kind of where you end up. And again, draft pick can influence things. Later draft picks, people are tending to go other than running backs. Okay? Is that the best idea? We'll see at the end of the season, right? But you just need to know and be prepared. Okay? So you just don't need to go in shocked or surprised by any kind of patterns. I'm trying to help you out that way. This is another way to look at that. This is by draft picks and positions. So the first round is basically showing the same thing, except the 1 means that's the position taken here. So Kelsey's going at 3, Waller's going at 9. Hill and Adams tend to go 10th and 11th. Okay. And I've got the dominant here, RB, wide receiver, and kind of a tie, but a little bit to the WR, right? So the pattern is RB, RB, wide receiver, wide receiver. That's what's going on. But notice that in the later rounds, the tendency is wide receiver, wide receiver. And in that case, on the turn, somebody went back and got a running back. This 10th pick is getting a tight end, Kittle. Okay. A lot of these, here's the first, tends to get another RB. So RB, RB, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 out of 12 in the first 2 rounds are getting RB, RB. Is that what you want? 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 12 are getting RB, WR. Is that what you want to do? Not saying you should or shouldn't. It's just you need to understand the patterns. And you can see, looks at round 3, everybody's grabbing the wide receivers. So if you want to go against the crowd, then grabbing wide receiver RB, RB would tend to go against the flow. Not saying you should do that. You need to look at your draft picks and figure that out. And I've got a little bit more in the article about that as well. So I do like to break the patterns up this way. Here's 5 through 8. Running backs, we're into the second, into the third. So 24 have gone, 25, 26, 27 are gone by eight rounds. 27. So do you want 2 or 3 by 8th round? You just need to decide. Tight ends, the first 12 are gone by the 8th round. Okay, did you want to stream tight ends? Okay. RBs are slowing down. Notice, here's a nice pattern here. Look at that. I mean, this is just, so rounds 5, 6 almost, and 7 are really getting dominated by WRs, but notice RBs are coming back. So I think, and I've always seen this in drafts, that people get nervous if they draft 2 of a position. They tend to go to something else the next couple picks. So there's this tendency in these 4 rounds, grab a couple of wide receivers, and then at the end you're thinking, oh, I've got too many. I need to grab that RB here, my second or third RB. That's fine. You just need to know that's the tendency there. Okay. You still got QB1s available here, and you got a nice gap here between the upper tight ends, the upper QBs and the lower ones. So you could invest in a QB here if that's what you wanted. You just need to think about how that flow is going there. But this is that tendency in those 8 rounds total, 5 to 8. So again, you can see WR, tied RB. So that's again the flow of the draft in the first 8 rounds is RB. What was it? It was WR, and then it was RB, WR, then back to WR, tied, and then RB. So just kind of string out the patterns here. So if you didn't grab a tight end, if you didn't grab a quarterback, you're probably okay on quarterbacks because there's still QB1s out there. So you could stockpile, 4 and 4. But in a tight end premium, you probably won't get a tight end one. So you're probably streaming tight ends if you do that much stockpiling of RBs and WRs. That's fine with me. Again, I'm not telling you how to draft the pattern. I'm telling you to understand the pattern so that you're not surprised, and whatever you plan, you either, hey, I'm going to go with the flow or I'm not. But I just want you to be aware of that, and I think that gives you an advantage and makes you more thoughtful. So the way I'm approaching is I usually, in a tight end premium, grab an early tight end and then probably are stockpiling RBs and WRs. And it depends on my draft pick, but that's kind of the trend I'm doing there. So here's 9 through 12. So we're into almost the end of the 5th level of WR. So they've really picked up here. Look, the RBs are starting to be about a half a round behind. So they've slowed down now. And notice that no QBs here. So I think I showed you the overall pattern. So if you've stockpiled and okay, I better pick up, well, you still got another round. You could stockpile or grab a tight end 2 type, but the end of the QB1s are right in there. So you just need to be aware of that. And we've gone 4th. So we're into the 5th level of RBs. So people have stockpiled a bunch of RBs and WRs by this point. 13 to 16, we're gone through the 5th round and heavily into the 6th, almost finished the 6th. So people are really making plays. But RBs are starting to pick up a little bit in this round. See this little area here? Look at the tight ends. Wow, they grab in that round. So people are trying to grab that last QB2 right here. So if you want one, they're not going to last. But boy, do you have a gap right here. If you love, if you're a streaming tight end play, you got almost 2 rounds to grab that tight end 3 type as your streaming option. Quarterbacks, you're going to have, your second quarterback, you'll have plenty of time there. And notice defense and place kickers are starting to come into play right here. So if you like early defense, there you go. I tend to stream defenses, but hey, go for it. Finally, 17 to 20, we're into the 7th level of RBs. The tight ends are just silent, and your tight end 3s are going to pick up a few. RBs, you're into the 7th, but you still got a few. So these are your deep plays here. I suggest you do some serious research here for late rookies, injury plays. It's hard to imagine you're going to be people, especially the FFPC people, are going to be surprised here by some of these plays. But you can play like it, and notice by the end of the 20th, everybody's got at least 2 quarterbacks by this point. Defenses are going strong, and people always say, oh, we do late round defenses. Isn't that funny that the ADP says that's not the case? People talk about that game, but here's the pros, and look at that. The last 2 rounds, if you go 20, only 1 defense is taken and 3. So there's this discussion about, I wait and take the defense the last round. Well, it's hard. ADP says most likely you're not doing that. So it gives you some good insight here. Uh, I have some reference slides, and probably in the article you should use that, but I have the known RB1s here and the average rank of them based on my manipulation of FFPC ADPs. Here it is. So you can kind of see who are the so-called fault RB1s, and especially at the bottom, there's some interesting names. So the pros are thinking Jay Williams beats Gordon in Denver. Carter beats everybody with the Jets. And again, this may be overall. Fournette beats Jones. David Johnson beats him. Harris is the top guy. And Zach Moss in Buffalo. So just realize that's what people are thinking, FFPC people. Here's the RB2s. Kareem Hunt, supposedly your best RB2. And then Robinson, Mostert, Gordon, etc. You can look at that. And then here's your RB3s. Bernard and James White are the top two. That's interesting. So, if you're looking for some depth play, this is what the tendency is here. Here's the WR1s. Here they are. The Tyreek Hill and Diggs is actually the second. So Adams is dropped to number 3. A.J. Brown, even with Julio, is still strong. Ridley is the 5th. Hopkins is the 6th, so forth. So just kind of see. So Jefferson's going to beat Thielen in Minnesota. I'm just saying, is that what's happening? Just think of it. So Lamb beats Cooper. I mean, you might use those. Evans beats Godwin. Just think about that, right? Just kind of peruse through that. Philadelphia, the rookie, tears them up. Wow. Okay. Here's the WRs. Cooper, Jones, Godwin are in Cup, Lockett are the top guys. Thielen. There's a lot of blending here. Notice these scores. Here's the WR3s. Schuster, Boyd, Brown. A lot of people are not drafting him, but he's a solid. In fact, one of the top WR3s. People are stockpiling him. Gabriel Davis, Terrence Marshall. So these are some unknown names. Mims, Cornell Powell. Just think about these. Okay, there's some names that are kind of new to this list. Minnesota. Okay, so you might find you some depth plays here. This is what the pros are looking at. Here's the 4s. Sanders, Crowder are the best of the 4s. So what I did here was took the rankings and slid them over and compared the RB1s to 2s. So Kareem Hunt is equal Jay Williams in Denver. So even though he's drafted on his team like an RB2, because he's so strong, he's actually has the value of an RB1. Robinson, Mostert, Gordon, Pollard are also high RB2s, low RB1 types, and there's this blending over. I like to know that. Okay. So Zach Moss RB1, yet all these RB2s are beat Harris as well. So think about that. Here's the 3s versus the 2. Bernard is equal to D. Evans at Tennessee. White, Mitchell, etc. They're low RB2 types. So if you just said, oh, this is an RB3, I should wait on them. Well, some of these have RB2 potential, and I think the pros are telling you which one. And this, you can use my article or listen to this, but I think we're doing some good stuff here. Here is the WRs, 1s and 2s. So Cooper is equal to Robinson. So first thing I notice is when you try to blend in using the FFPC, there are a lot more WR2s that equal mid or upper WR1. You didn't see that with the running back. So there's a clear in the distinction of the FFPC drafters, RBs and their values across the levels versus that clarity is not so strong with the WRs. Not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just telling you that if you just blindly, okay, I'm going to take Corey Davis, he's an RB1 and he's better than Cooper. That's not what's going on. Okay. So I would think that some of these lower WR1s had the potential to fall, whereas these WR2s that are equal had the potential to step in. So I think there's a lot of crosstalk here. And I don't think there's clarity. So people, want to declare things and label them. I don't like to label, even though I've done it. I tried my head to make it more fluid. So I suggest the pros are telling you we should be a lot more fluid about the WRs than the RBs. And I don't know if we handle them the same or not. I'm trying not to, based on this data. So I think that, to me, is the grand takeaway, is the rigidity at which I try to hold. Oh, that's an RB1. Probably, versus a WR1. There's a lot more flowy to that. So just be aware. I love that. And here's the RB3s, 2s, and 1. And notice even the the WR3s, like Juju, is worth potentially I don't know if it's a late, but it's below average WRs, but still there's some value here in these WR3s that could even be worth a 2, could even be worth a 1. So there's a lot of fluidity here, and I'm not sure people are talking about that. I've never seen anybody show anything like they need to. Probably I guess the professionals, if you're playing for thousands of dollars, I'm assuming they know this thing already. I would. I wouldn't just be kind of la, just flipping a coin or something. If I'm risking money, I want to know what I'm risking it on and why and how and what all that. So that's the idea and why I go through all this. So I think that's a big takeaway to me. And I even made this figure a little bit more viewable. So I got rid of the for sure, according to the pros, for sure RB1s are gone. So if you compare, so now we're into the fluid side of the WR1s, 2s, and 3s. So that really is intriguing to me personally, seeing the fluidity here, and it's much more undefined than I think people might want to say. Because when you label a WR1, a lot of people that are listening to you are seeing more rigid value than probably really exists. So it's more Swiss cheese here, the wide receivers. At least that's what the pros are telling us, which is, to me, interesting. I think it is. So that's my 10-cent tour. Thank you for listening. This is the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. I'm rocking and rolling. I've got going to have 100 or more lessons time it's said and done, probably more than that. But anyway, all my articles for off season, I like to have a video as well, just so you can hear me think about that. Plus, I hate to write so much. And there are things that when I visualize the data, I don't think about, and sometimes I miss in my articles. So this is a second way for you to catch things that I'm thinking about here. Okay. Part 3 is coming. It's going to be a little bit more of a referencey material at the team level. All 32 teams using FFPC. So come back for part 3 early next week, maybe. We'll see. Okay.